Welcome to the Elevator Podcast. I'm Heather Nemelka, your host, and today we are going to be talking about how mothers lose confidence over time. And what's interesting is when I became a mom, I was all excited. I did all the mom things. I felt confident in being a mom. But outside of being a mom, I lost confidence over time. And what's really interesting is this confidence doesn't just disappear overnight. It fades slowly, little by little. And I was thinking about it the other day, like, why is it that mothers lose confidence? What happens to their confidence? And I think as I thought more about it, I tried to remember, okay, when was it that I started losing confidence? And I can't pick a day or a time or a year or anything. I just know that over time I just lost confidence in myself. And I wonder if it's because I was raising kids and wanting them to be confident. And so I put all of my efforts into them and raising really confident children, which I think I've done a good job of. But all that emotional energy takes a lot of effort and time. And I think that in that process, I must have lost confidence in myself, just pouring everything into my children. I don't know for sure, but that's kind of how I think of it. And I thought to myself, have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered, well, what happened to you? What happened to you as a mother? And I wonder if a lot of it is we just stop focusing on ourselves and our needs and our wants, and we put everything into our family, the household. Running a household takes a lot of effort, and raising children, and so we lose ourselves in the process. And so I want to talk about today about, okay, so if we lose that confidence, how do we start reclaiming that confidence? And I know we talked about a little bit about this last time, but I'd love to talk about a little bit more, what kills our confidence and how do we rebuild that confidence, right? So let's talk about our identity. So before we became mothers, we identified ourselves as, maybe we were in college and we identified ourselves as a, art major, or maybe in high school you were a really great athlete, and so you identified yourself as the, tennis, all state player or whatever. Maybe it's your hobbies. Maybe you identified yourself as you know, a collector of sorts, or you love to sew. Those are kind of the things that we identified with. And so when we would introduce ourselves to someone, we would say, hi, I'm so and so, I'm an art major, or hi, I love doing this in my free time. And so we identified ourselves with these external pieces of our parts of our life. But what happens as a mother is we start to identify with our children. So we become, we talk about ourselves as being just a mom. We don't think of ourselves as having an identity outside of being a mom because we spend all of our day being a mom and focusing on those mom, duties and responsibilities. That's not bad, because that's why we become great mothers. Like, that's what makes us really great caretakers and givers for our family, is we identify with the most important part of our lives, which is motherhood. And I honor all women who are mothers and give of themselves every single day, day in, day out, because it is hard. It is not easy at all. And I recognize that that is a sacrifice in many ways. I was talking to a mother years ago, and she was a full-time, in the workforce mother. And I was talking to her at this dinner party, and she asked me about my kids, and I told her I had 3 kids, and she said, so what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I stay with my kids, and I provide for them. And she said, I could never do that. I could never be at home with my kids all day. That would drive me nuts. And I thought to myself, I'm so glad that I actually love being home with my kids. I really enjoy being a mom, a stay-at-home mom, in fact. And that brought me a lot of happiness. And I recognize that not everybody feels that way. Sometimes being a mother inside the home, working every day inside the home without pay, and it's oftentimes a thankless job. I recognize that's really, really hard. And there's other women who work full time and they wish they could actually be at home with their children all day. They miss being at home with their kids, spending the time and being there when their kids get home from school and they have to work. So I think it just depends on where you are in motherhood. And I think there's not one right way. It's just finding comfort and confidence in whatever part of motherhood you choose to identify with. And I think oftentimes too, like in the corporate world, in the business world, there's like performance reviews, there's report cards for people who are working outside the home, but in the home there isn't a report card for mothers. Motherhood is a job you do day in day out, and nobody's giving you high marks for being a great mother. And so that's another way we lose our confidence over time, is because nobody's rewarding us for the good job that we're doing. Oftentimes just being a mother and being able to have children is supposed to be reward enough, but I recognize that it's not easy to do it day in, day out. Also, too, there's a lot of social pressure about what you should do as a mother and what's expected of you as a mother. And there's not any right or wrong way to do motherhood. And sometimes you lose confidence because you think, oh, well, I'm not doing motherhood the way so and so is. And they seem to be such a better mom than I am. So let's talk a little bit about those confidence killers. So, number one, the biggest confidence killer of mothers is comparison, is looking at other mothers who seem to have it all, and they externally do, but they really don't on the inside. They are just reflecting their best selves and everything looks great on the outside. I had a neighbor who had 4 kids, and whenever we got together, her kids were super well behaved. She never raised her voice. They always obeyed and did what she asked them to do on the first request. And I was the one saying, I'm going to count to 3. And if you when I count to 3, if you haven't done this, then you're, going to have a consequence. And she just seemed to have it all together. And I just thought to myself, she deserves to have 4 kids because she's a great mom and she's patient, and her kids always look nice and they are just also put together. I was comparing myself to a person that had this, they looked perfect on the outside, but I'm sure there were lots of other things that weren't perfect in her life. But because I compared myself to her, I lost confidence in who I was trying to be as a mother. And there were lots of things that I was doing great. And if I were, probably some mother is comparing herself to me and thinking, oh, I wish I had, how many kids. I wish I could do what Heather does. And I'm just comparing myself to the wrong people. So just do not compare yourself to other moms. Just be grateful that you're a mom, and be grateful that you're doing the very best job that you can. And sometimes your best job is an 80% of the day, kind of you're doing a good job 80% of the day. And other days you might be doing a great job 100% of the day. And some days it's like 20%. But that's the best you could do that day. And recognize, just compare yourself to you, not to another mom who may have it all together. At least they look like it on the outside. Only compare yourself to you and try to do better every day. You're going to have days when you are a great mom and days that you're not. And that's okay. I had plenty of days when I thought, man, I am a terrible mom. And it's okay. But don't let that kill your confidence. But I completely understand why comparison might be killing your confidence, because I know it killed mine plenty of times. Another reason why you might lose confidence is skill erosion. And your skills that you have acquired during this time of being a mother are highly sought after, and they are important, especially those soft skills. But because we're not doing something maybe in the workforce, or we haven't started a business where we're doing something impactful, we think we don't have any skills. And quite frankly, a lot of technology happens behind the scenes when we're not necessarily building a business or we're not in the workforce. And so it's easy for us to think, oh, well, I don't have any skills. I have no technology skills at all because I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. And I recognize that because I felt that exact same way when I went back into the workforce. In fact, I purposely chose not to go into advertising because everything was digital. So it had been so long since I'd been in the workforce that felt my skills were obsolete, that nobody would want to hire me because I didn't have the skills that I thought I needed to have from a technical perspective. So recognize that you may think your skills are outdated, but they are not. You've acquired a lot of skills as being a mother. But also, when I went back to the workforce and did my first job, I actually learned a lot of things on the job. Like I was Googling things, I was learning constantly. And that served me well. People around me understood that I was still figuring things out. They gave me grace. It wasn't like the expectation was for me to learn and know everything right away. And that's typical of a lot of jobs and a lot of situations. When you start a business, for example, you don't know everything when you're doing it. You're learning and you're going to make mistakes and you're going to figure things out. But recognize that your skills can be reacquired over time. So if you think you don't have the skills now because you've been out of the workforce or you haven't been doing business, that's a total valid concern, but realize and recognize that you can get right back into it and learn those skills. There's lots of online courses you can take. There's also just confidence that you'll build once you're in the workplace. And also see those skills that you've acquired as a mother as being really important. Think about all of the things you do, managing your time, multitasking, dealing with really difficult conversations with your children, helping negotiate things with them, thinking about budgeting and working on finances with your family. Like that financial planning is a skill that you acquire over time that can completely transfer over to the workforce. But I understand that it's hard to see that. And I want you over this podcast series to, especially once I'm starting to bring on guests, I want you to recognize the skills that you've acquired in those guests that come on and see that you have acquired plenty of really important skills. You just don't recognize them. Or you may recognize them, but you think, oh, nobody will really want that. Or I don't think that that's something that's really valued. But recognize that skills, you might feel like you have some skill erosion, and that is true in some instances, but you've also acquired a ton of skills as a mother that are important and needed in the workforce. Whether you're returning to the workforce, you're building confidence, and even considering building a business or starting a business. So lots of things to look at there. Another area where you might have killed your confidence is by acquiring this fear of judgment. So we as mothers are concerned about how people are judging us. And so, for example, I would go to the grocery store, and if one of my kids was begging me for things off the shelf and I said no, and they threw a big temper tantrum and were throwing themselves on the ground all over the dirty floor, I thought to myself, man, I am such a bad mom because I can't control my child. And I worried when people would be looking at me. And so I lost a lot of confidence just because I worried what people were thinking of me and judging me in my motherhood. And I also felt like people might be judging me of also just choosing to be a stay-at-home mom. I remember having a conversation with another woman, and she was in the workforce and doing amazing things. And she'd asked me what I was doing, and I said I was a stay-at-home mom. And she had made the comment, I don't remember the exact comment, but it was something like, oh, that's great. Like I could just tell that she was surprised because she had known me for years before I had become a mom. And I thought, man, is she disappointed in me? Is she surprised? I don't know, but that judgment really hurt my heart. And I lost confidence in that moment of, man, maybe I needed to keep my skills relevant and should have worked part-time or done something outside of being a mother, because then I wouldn't have been judged that way. But she can judge me that way, and I just need to be okay with it. But at the time I wasn't. And so I recognize that sometimes our confidence is killed because we just worry about what other people are thinking of us. Another area that kills our confidence is guilt and self-doubt. So you are going to feel guilty for having feelings of maybe wanting to do something more outside of motherhood. That's real. Mom guilt is real, and we'll have a whole episode about mom guilt because I suffer from this in a very big way. I just can find guilt in all areas of my life. But I think as mothers, you might feel guilty for choosing to be a stay-at-home mom. Like, man, I'm not providing for the family. I'm just taking care of the family. You could feel some guilt about choosing that. Or if you're wanting to return to the workforce or start a business or do something outside of motherhood, you could feel guilt about that as well. So it goes both ways. And that also kills our confidence as mothers. And also this self-doubt. So whenever you start thinking, oh, well, I couldn't possibly do that, that just thinking of that, you know, that self-doubt in and of itself, it just causes this lack of confidence that you are going to struggle with. And just another confidence killer that is really hard. And I wish I could give you my confidence, because I'm telling you right now, you can do so much more. Build yourself up. There are so many things, and we're going to be talking about that over this series. But I wish I could just help you see that and not let this, guilt and self doubt cloud that confidence. Um, you're always going to wonder if you're making the right choice, no matter what. Mothers are going to wonder, am I making the right choice for myself, for my family? How is this going to affect others? And it's easy to fall into that trap of worrying about what others are going to think and say and do based on your decisions. But don't let that affect your choices going forward. I know it's hard. It's not easy, but I hope that that's something you can do. There's also, just in general, when we're thinking about confidence, is, we want to have something that is ours. I know that when I was a mom, a stay-at-home mom, I'm still a mom, obviously, but as a stay-at-home mom, I remember wanting something that was just all mine, that I could say, this is mine, having some autonomy and some choices that you could make about something that is unrelated to your family, your spouse, the household, that you can just say, this is mine. And also not being solely dependent on your partner for your finances, and wanting to be able to have this in a way, or this option to be able to either return to the workforce, start a business, do something for yourself. That is something that's really important. You want to, I guess the best way to put it is identify with something that you can be proud of, that nobody else can affect, that you are the sole person that can affect that. So that's just something else that's on my mind. So let's think about, how do we rebuild our confidence? First of all, recognize that losing confidence over time is completely normal. Lots of mothers deal with this. In fact, I don't know any mother that has gone through motherhood and have felt 100% confident the whole time. And I would say most often mothers lose their confidence and they don't get it back for a really long time. And if you're in those shoes, wondering, where did my confidence go? Who am I? I don't even recognize the person in the mirror anymore. Know that this is completely normal. I talk to so many women who have this exact same feeling of just wondering, where did it all go? How did I lose this self-confidence over time? Why? And how do I rebuild that? Well, we're going to talk about that. So, losing confidence is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of transition. You are now transitioning after this lack of confidence into building confidence. And in life, there's ebbs and flows. You're always, forever going to have days and weeks and months and years when you feel more confident than other times. I know that even though I'm in the workforce now and I have had some success, I don't always feel confident, which sounds crazy, because to look at me, you would think, oh, Heather has all this confidence. She's doing this podcast. She can do all this stuff. The reality is I doubt myself all the time. And I have to always be reminding myself and rebuilding that confidence day in, day out. And I don't know why this is, but just recognize that this is very, very normal. If I'm like this, other people are like this too. And so don't think you are alone in this. So realize that your confidence is not gone. It is just buried under responsibilities. And you've got a lot of responsibilities as a mother, and you don't see all the amazing things you're doing because you've got all these household responsibilities and also children responsibilities and spouse responsibilities. Taking care of your spouse also takes a lot out of you. So recognize that this is just, your confidence is just hidden right now. And we talked about last time that confidence requires evidence. And so you're going to continue to recognize all the amazing things you've done as a mother as we continue to talk and build yourself up. So this is what we're here for, to talk about how do I rebuild that confidence? How do I find myself again? So we talked a little bit about those strengths and time management, problem solving, those kind of things that you've gained as a mother. But also realize that confidence is not about knowing everything. It's about trusting yourself to figure it out. And when I was hired for my first job, I didn't know everything, but I knew that I could figure it out. I knew that if people gave me a chance and they took a chance on me, I would talk to people, ask the questions, study outside of work, figure things out. And you are smart. You can figure it out too. You are not dumb. I know when I returned to the workforce, I thought, no one's going to hire me. I'm not smart. And I am smart. I just put myself down because I thought, well, I'm not in the workforce, so I don't know all these terms and I don't know technical tools, but I'm smart. I can figure things out. I'm teaching my kids day in, day out how to do things. That takes some smart to be able to educate your children. So recognize that you are smart and very capable. You can rebuild this confidence. You just have to figure it out. It just takes a little bit of time. All right, so let's talk about what steps you're going to take to rebuild this confidence. First of all, you're going to reframe your story. Instead of saying, I just don't know, I'm an idiot. I think I mentioned that, like I have in the past sometimes called myself an idiot, which is terrible to do. Reframe it to say, I'm figuring things out. I'm learning as I go. I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay, because we make mistakes all the time. We tell our children all the time it's okay to make mistakes. So why don't we tell ourselves that it's okay to make mistakes? Why do we tell ourselves that we have to be perfect? We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be perfect in our effort to try to be better, do better. And it's like I said before, you're going to have some days where you gave everything and 20% was everything that day because you were exhausted, you were spent. Some days you're going to give 80%, and it's because you have more energy and more willpower. And some days it's going to be 100%. And on those red letter days when it's 100% effort and you feel great, pat yourself on the back and count that as building confidence. Because again, as you continue to do more things that you recognize that you have skills and you're capable, you're building confidence. So reframe that story and say, I'm learning, I'm figuring things out, and I'll get there. So don't call yourself stupid. Don't call yourself, you don't want to say I'm incapable. You're capable, you're smart, and you're willing, and that's what really matters. All right. Also, stop saying, I'm just a mom. I say that all the time, or I have said that in the past. I don't anymore because I got better. But stop saying I'm just a mom. So when somebody asks you, oh, what do you do? Don't say I'm just a mom. Guess what? You are amazing. You are not just a mom. You are skilled. You are a skilled, homemaker, time manager, event planner, negotiator, problem solver, communicator. Those are all the things you are great at. You are not just a mom. So stop saying that. We need to stop saying it, but we sometimes just automatically say it. We are so much more than just a mom. Now, we are going to keep talking every time about how we're going to get this confidence back. And it's not going to be immediate. It's going to be rebuilt over time. And I want to share this quote that I love. And I want to unpack it a little bit. So I'm going to share this quote and tell you what I think. So it says, motherhood is a choice you make every day to put someone else's happiness and well-being ahead of your own, to teach the hard lessons, to do the right thing, even when you're not sure what the right thing is, and to forgive yourself over and over again for doing everything wrong. Now, the fact of the matter is you're thinking you're doing everything wrong. But the reality is you're doing everything right because you're learning from this experience. Motherhood is an educational opportunity to become our best selves. We think it's about our children. We think it's about our families. But there's also a lot of growth that comes from being a mother. realize that you are important, you are skilled, you are capable, and you are figuring things out over time, and you'll get better and you'll become who you were always meant to be, not just an amazing, capable mother, but also an individual with strengths in your own way. And we're going to help you discover what those strengths are. You're going to discover that you have an enjoyment for certain things in life that you never thought you did. And I want you to process that over this time. So as we're doing this series of confidence podcast episodes, I want you to recognize that this is a journey of becoming. You are becoming who you were always meant to be, a great mother and a great person. And over time, you'll get better at whatever you choose to be outside of motherhood. And if you want to just be a great mother, that's okay too, because we're here to help you build confidence. So maybe you also just need to build confidence in who you are right now as a mother. And if you're thinking about doing other things, whether it's taking on a new hobby, new projects, maybe doing a remodel for your home, maybe it's returning the workforce or starting a business, whatever it is, I'm here to help you build confidence. And we're going to be on this journey together. And I want you to know you are not alone. I'm here for you. And it's just going to be a great adventure. And we're going to work hard. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to learn as we do it. And we're going to be great at whoever we become. Thanks for joining.